Hello from Liberia, and thank you so much for joining me today for another thought from the Bible. What an amazing opportunity we have just to get stuck into this amazing book together and see what it has to say for us today. So we've been following along with this amazing adventure of the Israelite people. They went from being enslaved in Egypt to seeing God move in an amazing way, to wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, to finally reaching the border of the promised land. But now we reach a point where Moses, their leader, has died. The people of Israel have mourned, and they have elected a new leader, a man called Joshua, who was Moses' former assistant. Now they find themselves standing on the banks of the River Jordan, looking at their promised land on the other side of this flowing river. But there's a bit of a problem. So the River Jordan at this time, the Bible tells us, was in flood. There was no convenient bridge to cross over it, no place to ford it, with the water running like a torrent so fast in front of them. But as we know, little things like that aren't a problem for God. And in Joshua chapter 3, verses 11 to 13, we read, "See, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. And as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap." I just love that imagery, the waters in a giant heap. It sounds simple enough, right? Very easy, in fact, for the vast majority of the Israelite population. Just walk through on dry ground. But what about the priests who were to carry the ark of the Lord? Just think about that for a moment. These men had to walk into a river that the Bible describes as at flood stage. Just imagine being one of them, tentatively dipping your toe into the water. This was nothing like crossing the Red Sea, as the Israelite people had done before when Moses just kind of raised his staff and the waters parted and it was dry ground for everyone. No, this was different. These men had to step into the water while the flood was raging in front of them. I think I'd have been a little bit nervous, if I'm honest. But as the Bible says, as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. Okay, breathe a sigh of relief, priests. The water is stopping. But that's not the end of your job. Sorry. You don't get to just walk through to the other side of the river and watch everyone cross over. No. You now have to stop in the middle of the River Jordan on this riverbed and wait while the entire nation of Israel passes you by. Now I've seen pictures of this, like artists' impressions of, the Israelites crossing the River Jordan, and it's always this little queue of people. Just, a little stream, maybe crossing like 2 by 2 as the water's piled up on one side. But it's easy to forget that there were likely to be, based on the numbers of men that we know of from when Moses counted the number of Israelites there were when they reached this place, we know that there were likely to be around 2.5 million people, when you include all the women, all the children, all the men, not to mention all of their cattle and all of their other livestock that also had to cross into that land. Now we are told that the waters piled up into that heap, a great distance away. That's what the Bible says. So there was likely to be quite a big stretch of dry land. It wasn't just a narrow passage that may have stretched for miles. And yet, 2.5 million people. That is a lot of people. That's more than my brain can visualize. We think of those massive stadiums full of people, and that's only tens of thousands. This is millions of people who need to cross that river. Just put yourself back in the position of those priests for a moment. You've just experienced the excitement of the water stopping. But now you've got to hold this heavy, gold-encrusted box for hour upon hour upon hour, maybe for an entire day, maybe for days, plural. We don't know how long it took for that vast amount of people to cross into the promised land. Even if the priests could have put it down, which I kind of doubt, in the middle of a riverbed, just standing there for that amount of time would have been utterly exhausting. Sometimes moving forward is painful. Sometimes the things that God asks us to do are not easy. Sometimes the way into the next phase of where we're going is really, really hard. The way forward may be challenging physically or mentally or emotionally. Crossing into something new may require some pain that is necessary for the process. But it's not all bad news. See, the fact is, if you read this account in Joshua, the priests were able to hold the ark for that long. And maybe they had help. Maybe there were other priests and, every hour they could swap who was holding it between them. Maybe God gave them supernatural strength to do what he was asking of them. We don't know. But we do know that God made a way. That every single person who needed to cross that river crossed it on dry ground, while the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord held its ground in the middle of that river. We know God made a way, and it opened the door of the promised land to the people of Israel. If God has called you to something that feels a bit painful and hard and difficult right now, then don't worry. Because he will give you what you need to get through this time. Whether it's a position at work that just seems impossible right now, whether it's a ministry in which you're facing so much opposition that you don't even know if you're doing the right thing anymore, whether it's some situation in your life that just feels like you're not making any progress, but every time you pray about it, you feel like God says to keep on going. Whatever it may be, whatever may feel difficult and hard, whether it feels like you're putting your toe into the flood water, or whether it feels like you're just standing still and you don't know what to do, God will make a way for you. You are not alone in this situation. Moving forward may hurt, but God is with you. And as we enter into that place where it is hard, and as we do step forward, and as we hold that position, hold that ground, do what God has told us to do, that's where we enter into a place where we can start to see his amazing power begin to work. And if we just keep on pushing forward, maybe, just maybe, that promised land may be just a few steps ahead. Sometimes this life is hard, but we're not doing it on our own. God is with you. God will make a way. He will make a way through the flood. He will make a way through the wilderness. He will make a way through whatever situation you find yourself in today. Trust in him. Keep going. Keep holding on. He's with you. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that that thought encouraged you, especially if you do find yourself in that kind of difficult situation right now. I'll be back on Wednesday next week with another thought from the Bible, so I will see you then.